The Galactic Council Hall was the largest structure ever built in space. It was not a building on a planet but a floating station, the size of a small moon. Aliens from hundreds of worlds gathered here, their ships parked in orbit, their banners hanging in the airless void outside. Inside the Great Hall, the voices of many species echoed together, each language translated instantly by the Council's machines. The atmosphere was tense. Something important was about to happen. The Zareth Empire had arrived. Everyone in the galaxy feared the Zareth. They were an insectoid species, tall and armored, with sharp mandibles and cold, multifaceted eyes. Their soldiers were fearless, their fleets unmatched. No one wanted to anger them, and no one wanted to fight them. When their queen entered the hall, even the bravest generals lowered their eyes. She was taller than most species, her body covered in black and golden plates, her crown fused with her very skull. She walked slowly, each step echoing like thunder in the chamber. Every seat went silent. The queen raised her clawed hand for attention. "I, Queen Xylaris of the Zareth," she said, her voice both beautiful and terrifying, "have come to ask a question that will change the galaxy." The translators carried her words across the hall. Hundreds of species froze, waiting. Some whispered in fear, some in confusion. The queen's mandibles twitched and her glowing eyes swept across the council. Then she asked, "Who among you will marry me and unite your people with mine?" The words slammed into the room like a shockwave. For a moment, no one moved. Then whispers exploded across the chamber. "She must be joking," hissed a reptilian ambassador. "Impossible. Who would dare?" muttered a fur-covered envoy from a colder world. "She cannot mean it," whispered another. But the queen stood still, her body glowing faintly in the light of the chamber, waiting. Her question was not a joke. She meant every word. The silence grew heavy. No alien dared to answer. The Zareth were too dangerous, too alien, too feared. To marry their queen was to risk everything. Your life, your people, your future. One wrong move could doom a whole civilization. Finally, the queen's eyes narrowed. She could sense their fear. "No one?" she said, her voice sharp. "No one will stand?" The room remained frozen. Ambassadors looked at one another, waiting for someone else to step forward, but no one dared. Even the bravest warriors avoided her gaze. And then, from the human delegation, a chair scraped against the floor. A man stood up. He was not wearing armor or a crown. He was not the leader of his species, just a representative. His name was Captain Elias Ward, an explorer and officer chosen by humanity to observe the council. He was tall for a human, with brown hair, sharp eyes, and the calm stance of a man used to danger. "I will," he said. The hall went silent again. This silence was even heavier than before. Every alien eye turned toward him. The translators repeated his words in dozens of languages, each one filled with disbelief. "I will marry you," Elias repeated, his voice steady, clear, and calm. Gasps filled the room. Some species hissed in shock, others laughed nervously. The reptilian ambassador leaned forward and shouted, "Human, are you mad?" But Elias did not look at them. His eyes were on the queen. Queen Xylaris tilted her head. Her mandibles clicked in surprise. Of all the races, of all the warriors and kings, it was a human who answered. "One man alone, you," she said slowly, her voice almost amused. "You would bind yourself to me, knowing what I am?" "I know," Elias said. "And still my answer is yes." The queen studied him in silence. Her eyes shone brighter as if searching his soul. The other delegations burst into argument. "This is insanity," cried a crystalline diplomat. "Humans are reckless fools," another spat. "Kill him now before he brings doom on us all," a voice shouted from the back. But Elias stood firm, his arms at his sides, his face calm. The queen raised her hand, silencing them all. "Enough," she commanded. The chamber obeyed. She turned back to Elias. "Very well, human. If you wish to offer yourself, you will come to my world. There you will face the trials of the Zareth. If you pass, you will stand as my chosen." Elias nodded. "I accept." The queen's mandibles twitched into what might have been the closest thing to a smile her species could show. She turned and left the hall, her guards surrounding her, their wings buzzing faintly. The council chamber erupted in chaos the moment she was gone. "You have doomed us all," shouted one alien leader at Elias. "You humans think everything is a game of chance," another spat. But some stared at Elias with curiosity, even respect. No one else had dared to answer. Only a human had spoken. Elias ignored their insults. He returned to his seat calm and steady. Inside, however, he knew the truth. He had just accepted a challenge that could destroy him, or change the galaxy forever. When the session ended, the human delegation gathered around him. Some were pale with fear, others angry. "Captain Ward, do you understand what you've done?" one of them whispered. "Yes," Elias replied. "I gave an answer." "You can't seriously think—" "I don't know what will happen," Elias said honestly. But she asked, and no one answered. Someone had to. He looked out the great window of the station where stars burned silently. His heart was steady. Humans had always stepped into the unknown, crossing seas, climbing mountains, venturing into space. This was no different. Far away in her private chamber, Queen Xylaris sat alone. She had expected silence. She had expected cowardice. She had not expected a human. Her claws tapped against her throne. Her people had told her no species would ever dare. Yet one man had spoken. Only one. And for the first time in years, the Queen of the Zareth felt something new. Curiosity. The journey to the Zareth hive world began quickly. Within days, Captain Elias Ward found himself on board a massive Zareth warship. The vessel was alive with activity, its walls lined with organic metal that pulsed faintly like muscle. To human eyes it was strange and unsettling, but to the Zareth it was beautiful. Their technology was not built. It was grown. Elias walked down the ship's corridors with 2 insectoid guards at his side. They were silent, their armored bodies clicking faintly as they moved. They did not speak to him, but they watched him carefully as if waiting for him to panic. He did not. Instead, Elias studied the ship with curiosity. He touched the walls, listened to the deep hum of its engines, and asked questions even if no one answered. His calmness seemed to confuse the guards. Most aliens would have been trembling by now, but the human walked as if he belonged. At last they reached a grand chamber. Inside, Queen Xylaris waited. The chamber was vast, lit by glowing crystals hanging from the ceiling. The queen stood at the center, her crown gleaming, her wings folded neatly against her armored back. She looked down at Elias as he entered, her eyes glowing faintly. "You came," she said, her voice echoing. "I gave my word," Elias replied. Her mandibles clicked in amusement. "Strange. Most beings say one thing and do another, but you are here." "I am human," Elias said simply. "We keep our promises even if the path is dangerous." The queen tilted her head, studying him. "Tell me, human, why? Why did you answer when no other dared?" Elias met her gaze without fear. "Because you asked, and because silence is worse than risk." The queen's eyes narrowed. She could sense the truth in him. "Do you know what it means to stand beside me? My people are feared, hated. My enemies will become your enemies. My power will weigh upon your shoulders. Do you truly understand?" "I understand enough," Elias said. "And I am not afraid." The queen's mandibles twitched. "Not afraid. Yet." Outside the chamber, other alien representatives whispered in disbelief. The council had sent spies aboard the Zareth vessel to watch. They could not believe what they saw. A human speaking calmly to the most feared queen in the galaxy. "Reckless," muttered a reptilian spy. "Or clever," said another. "Humans are unpredictable." The news spread quickly through the stars. Messages traveled from one system to another. The human accepted the queen's hand. Some laughed, others panicked. Some thought humanity would be destroyed. Others thought this was a trick. But deep inside many hearts, curiosity began to grow. What would happen next? Back in the chamber, Elias and the queen continued their conversation. "You speak boldly," the queen said, "but boldness alone will not earn my hand. In our tradition, any who would stand beside me must face the trials of the hive." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Trials?" "Yes," she said. 3 tests. Strength, wisdom, and courage. Only those who pass may call themselves worthy. And if I fail?" Elias asked. "Then you will die," the queen answered simply. Her words would have frozen most beings, but Elias only nodded. "Then I will pass." The queen leaned forward. "You sound so certain. Why?" "Because humans survive," Elias said. "We adapt. We fight, we learn. No matter the world, no matter the challenge, we find a way." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. She simply stared at him, her many eyes reflecting the glow of the chamber. Then softly she asked, "What makes your species different from all the others?" Elias smiled faintly. We are not the strongest. We are not the smartest. We are not the fastest, but we never stop. When others fall, humans keep going. That is our strength." The queen was silent. Deep inside, something stirred. Her people had always believed in power and fear and domination. Yet here was a being who spoke of persistence, of never giving up. It was not strength of claw or weapon, but strength of spirit. That night, Elias was given quarters aboard the ship. The room was strange, its walls alive with faint breathing, but it was warm and safe. He sat on the edge of a bed-like platform, thinking. He knew the risks. He knew the trials could kill him, but he also knew this was more than just a test. If he succeeded, he would not only change his own life, but also the fate of 2 civilizations. As he rested, one of the guards entered silently. The insectoid bowed slightly, surprising Elias. "You are different," the guard said in a low, clicking voice. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Most who stand before the queen tremble. They bow, they beg. You did not. You looked into her eyes. You spoke without fear. Why?" "Because she is not a monster," Elias said. "She is a ruler. She is someone who deserves respect." The guard stared at him for a long moment, then left without another word. But in his insect heart, a seed of respect for the human began to grow. Days later, the Zareth fleet reached their homeworld. The planet was a dark jewel in space, covered in vast hives that stretched from the surface into the clouds. Millions of Zareth lived here, their wings buzzing as they flew between towers of living stone. As the Queen's ship landed, crowds gathered. Thousands of Zareth warriors lined the landing field, their weapons gleaming. The sound of their wings filled the air like thunder. The Queen emerged first, her crown shining. Then Elias stepped down beside her. The crowd hissed in shock. "A soft one," they muttered. "A flesh creature dares to stand beside the Queen? He will not survive the trials. He is already dead." But Elias walked calmly, his back straight, his eyes forward. He did not flinch, did not bow. He walked as if he belonged, and that confidence made even the fiercest Zareth pause. Inside the Grand Hive Palace, the Queen led him to the throne chamber. Her court was gathered, hundreds of high-ranking Zareth with jeweled armor and sharp wings. They looked down at Elias with open hatred. "Why this one?" one of them hissed. "Why a human?" The Queen's eyes flashed. "Because he answered when no one else did," the court muttered in disbelief. To them, the human was nothing. But the Queen had spoken, and her word was law. She turned to Elias. "Tomorrow the first trial begins. Rest tonight, human. Tomorrow you will prove your worth or die trying." Elias nodded. "I'll be ready." The Queen studied him for a long time. For years she had been surrounded by fear, by obedience, by silence. Yet this human stood before her with calm strength. He was unlike any being she had ever met. And deep inside her armored heart she began to wonder, why only him? Why only a human? That night, as Elias prepared for the trials ahead, he looked out at the alien city glowing in the darkness. His heart was steady. He knew the galaxy was watching. Some waited for him to fail. Others waited for him to prove what humanity truly was. For Elias, there was no turning back. The Queen had asked her question. He had given his answer. And tomorrow he would begin to prove it. The next morning came with a roar of wings. The sun of the Zareth homeworld rose over the hive towers, casting long shadows across the city. Thousands of Zareth gathered around the grand arena, a colossal structure built from living stone, its walls pulsing faintly with energy. Inside, the Queen sat upon a throne of black crystal, her eyes glowing as she watched. Around her stood the high court, armored and sharp, buzzing with anticipation. This was not just a ceremony, it was a spectacle. The whole hive wanted to see if the human would survive. At the center of the arena stood Captain Elias Ward. He wore no armor, no weapon, only a simple tunic given to him by the Zareth. Around him the air was hot and filled with the sound of buzzing wings. A booming voice echoed from the walls. First trial. The trial of strength. The crowd hissed with excitement. From the gates at the far end of the arena the ground shook. A monstrous beast emerged, its body covered in thick armored plates, its claws as long as swords. It was a war beast bred by the Zareth for battle. Its many eyes glowed red as it roared, shaking the arena. The crowd cheered. He will be crushed. He is soft flesh, nothing more. Elias stood firm. His heart pounded, but he did not run. He studied the creature carefully, watching how it moved, how its legs struck the ground. The beast charged. The ground cracked beneath its weight. Elias sprinted to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws. He rolled, picked up a broken shard of stone, and gripped it like a knife. The beast turned and roared again, swinging its tail like a massive whip. Elias ducked, the tail smashing the ground where he had stood. Dust and rock exploded around him. The crowd laughed. Hopeless. But Elias did not panic. He remembered every story of humans hunting creatures larger than themselves. Every lesson of survival. Size was power, but size was also weakness. The beast lunged again, jaws wide. Elias ran straight at it. At the last second, he slid beneath its belly, stabbing the shard of stone into a softer gap in its armor. The beast screamed in pain, thrashing wildly. The crowd fell silent. Elias scrambled onto its back, gripping its armored plates. The beast tried to throw him off, but the human held tight, using both arms and legs. With all his strength, he drove the stone shard again and again into weak spots until at last, the creature collapsed with a final roar, its body trembling. The arena was silent for a heartbeat. Then gasps spread through the crowd. He killed it. A human defeated the war beast. Queen Xylaris leaned forward, her eyes burning. Her mandibles twitched faintly. For the first time in years, she was impressed. Elias stood over the fallen beast, his chest heaving, blood and dust covering him. He raised his head toward the queen, and instead of boasting, he simply nodded. "I am ready for the next trial," he said. The second day came. Again, the arena filled with thousands. Again, the queen watched from her throne. Second trial, the trial of wisdom. This time, Elias was led into a different chamber beneath the arena. The walls glowed with strange symbols, shifting and moving like living puzzles. 3 massive stone doors stood before him, each carved with alien markings. Only one led forward. The others would trap him forever, the Zareth scholars whispered among themselves. He will never solve it. Our wisest minds failed these puzzles. Elias studied the doors carefully. The symbols danced like insects across the surface. They were not just pictures, they were stories, patterns of the Zareth's own history. He remembered what he had learned during the journey. The Zareth valued strength, but they also valued memory. Their hive songs told of battles, victories, and losses. These puzzles were more than riddles, they were echoes of the past. Elias closed his eyes, breathing slowly. He thought like a human, but also tried to think like them. He followed the patterns, tracing his finger over the symbols, piecing together their meaning. After what felt like hours, he smiled faintly. He placed his hand on the center door. The symbols glowed. The stone shifted. The door opened with a deep rumble, the chamber filled with gasps. He solved it. No outsider has ever passed the wisdom trial. Elias stepped through the door calmly, as if he had always known the answer. When he returned to the arena floor, the crowd was restless. Some hissed in anger, others in awe, but all eyes turned to the queen. Her expression was unreadable, but inside her thoughts churned. This human was not just strong. He was clever. He saw patterns even her own people sometimes missed. On the third day, the final trial began. Third trial. The trial of courage. This time there was no arena, no puzzle. Instead, Elias was led into the deepest chamber of the hive, a place even Zareth feared to enter. It was called the Brood Pit. Here, the queen's youngest spawn grew wild and dangerous. They were half-formed, savage, and uncontrollable. To enter unarmed was almost certain death. The guards opened the gates and shoved Elias inside. The door sealed behind him. The chamber was dark, hot, and filled with chittering sounds. Glowing eyes opened in the shadows. Dozens of young Zareth spawn crawled forward, their claws clicking. Most beings would have screamed, would have tried to fight or flee. Elias did neither. He walked forward slowly, his hands open, his posture calm. The creatures hissed, circling him, testing his fear. He did not show fear. He did not raise a weapon. He simply stood still, breathing slowly, letting them study him. One of the larger spawn lunged suddenly, its claws inches from his face. Elias did not move. He stared back into its glowing eyes, steady and calm. The creature froze. Then slowly it lowered its claws. The others hissed but followed. One by one they stepped back, circling him but not striking. They sensed something different, something fearless. For long minutes Elias stood among them, unflinching. When at last the chamber doors opened, he walked out unharmed. The crowd above was silent. None had expected him to survive. The queen rose from her throne, her wings unfolding, her eyes burning with strange light. "This human," she said, her voice echoing across the arena, "has faced strength, wisdom, and courage. He did not fall. He did not fear. He stands before you now as one who has earned the right." The arena erupted in shock. Some cheered, some hissed in anger, but none could deny what they had seen. Elias looked up at the queen, meeting her gaze. He was tired, wounded, and covered in dust, but his eyes were steady. "I told you," he said simply. "Humans survive." For the first time in many years, the Queen of the Zareth felt something unexpected deep inside her chest. Respect. The day after the trials of the Hive, the Zareth hive world was alive with murmurs. News of Captain Elias Ward's success had spread like wildfire through the vast city hives. Thousands of alien citizens whispered, buzzed, and clicked in disbelief. "He survived the war beast?" hissed one soldier. "The puzzles?" another replied. "Impossible. Even the brood pit?" said a third, wings trembling. "No one has ever faced it unarmed." But not all Zareth were impressed. Deep in the shadows, among the tallest spires of the hive, a faction of rival nobles gathered in secret. Their mandibles clicked in irritation, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "This human," one said, tapping his claw against a table, "is not meant to stand beside the queen. He is flesh and blood, soft, unpredictable. He will ruin everything." "Agreed," another hissed. "We cannot allow it. He has no loyalty to the Zareth. He is an outsider. Our empire will fall if we allow him to marry her." A third, the oldest among them, spoke slowly. "We strike before the ceremony. Eliminate him in the human way, quick, efficient. No one will blame the queen's wrath." They all nodded, understanding immediately. The plan was set. Meanwhile, Elias was unaware of the conspiracy forming above him. He spent his day preparing for the upcoming ceremony. Though he had survived the trials, he knew the path ahead was dangerous. His body ached, his muscles burned from the challenges of the last 3 days, but his spirit remained steady. He walked through the Hive Palace corridors with a quiet confidence. The Zareth guards who had escorted him since his arrival now looked at him differently, some with curiosity, others with doubt. But all sensed one truth: the human was no ordinary being. "Captain Ward," said one guard cautiously, "do you know why you were chosen?" "I think I have an idea," Elias replied. "But the queen must know more than anyone. This is bigger than me." "Bigger than humans," the guard paused. "Indeed. Perhaps you are not just surviving for yourself, but for the future of 2 civilizations." Elias nodded silently, considering the weight of those words. As night fell, the conspirators began their move. The ceremony was set for dawn, but secret agents infiltrated the palace, weaving through hidden tunnels. They carried weapons and devices unknown to humans, razor-edged darts, paralyzing gas, and sonic disruptors capable of killing instantly. In the shadows, they whispered. "When he enters the hall," one said, "we strike. One blow to the chest and he falls. The queen will mourn, yes, but she cannot deny that fate chose him." "Good," another hissed. "And if he survives?" The oldest noble clicked his mandibles sharply. "He will not." None survive an ambush from their own people in the queen's palace. Elias, unaware, slept lightly in his quarters. He had learned enough in the trials to trust his instincts. Something in the air felt wrong. He could not shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Suddenly, a faint hum reached his ears, a sound unlike any he had heard before. A subtle vibration, a signal of danger. He opened his eyes and saw shadows moving outside his door. Instinct took over. Elias rose silently, moving to the window. He looked down and saw shapes moving along the palace walls, figures creeping toward him with deadly precision. "They're coming," he whispered. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed a nearby staff-like weapon left for him by the queen's guards. It was simple but strong, forged from living metal. He moved to intercept the intruders. The first 2 attackers burst through the door. Elias met them head-on. The staff whipped through the air, striking one intruder with precise force. Another lunged, claws and weapons glinting, but Elias ducked and rolled, striking with the staff again. They had expected a human to panic, to scream, to flee. But Elias did none of those things. He fought calmly with sharp reflexes and careful strategy. Each movement counted, each strike deliberate. A third intruder lunged from the shadows, aiming a dart at him. Elias caught it mid-air, twisting it with his fingers until it shattered. He felt a strange thrill, not fear but focus. This was survival, pure and simple. The battle spread quickly through the corridors. Alarm sirens blared, the Queen's guards arrived, and the conspirators realized their plan was failing. Elias moved through the chaos with ease, using both the environment and his instincts to his advantage. When he reached the main hall, he saw the conspirators attempting to regroup near the throne. Queen Xylaris appeared above them, her many eyes blazing with fury. She unleashed a warning cry that shook the room. The Zareth loyal to her surged forward, attacking the traitors. But Elias stopped the Queen with a raised hand. "Let me finish this," he said calmly. The Queen's mandibles twitched in surprise. Humans rarely commanded attention like that, especially from those who had tried to kill her chosen. Elias moved forward. He knew the conspirators expected fear, hesitation, or retreat. Instead, he confronted them directly, showing courage where they had only aggression. "You tried to kill me," he said, his voice steady. "Because you feared change. Because you think the galaxy belongs to you alone. But you are wrong. Fear is weakness, and arrogance will destroy you before it destroys me." The conspirators faltered. They had not expected words, reason, or defiance, only a human's death. Elias lunged with his staff, disarming the nearest one and knocking him unconscious. Another attacked with claws, but Elias twisted, used the intruder's own momentum, and sent him sprawling. Within minutes, the conspirators were either restrained or fleeing. The Queen observed silently, her many eyes taking in every detail. She had expected the human to survive the trials, but this was different. Elias had not only survived, but he had acted with mercy, with judgment, and with courage beyond what her people had taught her to expect. The surviving conspirators were brought before the throne. Queen Xylaris towered over them, her wings outstretched. "You sought to kill my chosen," she said, her voice like rolling thunder. "Yet he has shown more wisdom, courage, and honor than any of you. Do you see now why he stands here?" The conspirators bowed, trembling. Elias stepped forward. "Mercy," he said simply. "Do not punish them. Let them learn." The Queen's mandibles clicked, a rare expression of admiration. "You are human," she said softly, almost to herself. "You do not kill out of fear. You do not strike for revenge. You think. You survive. You lead." For the first time in her reign, Queen Xylaris wondered what it might mean to rule with someone like him by her side. By dawn, the hive world was calm again. News of the foiled conspiracy spread quickly. Across the planet, aliens whispered in awe. The human had not only survived the trials, but he had survived betrayal and attack as well. Some were angry. Some were amazed, but all knew one thing. Elias Ward was no ordinary human. He had proven that humans were not weak, that they were clever, resourceful, and unafraid, even in the heart of the most dangerous empire in the galaxy. Elias returned to the Queen's side, tired but unbowed. She looked down at him, a rare softness in her gaze. "You have survived strength, wisdom, courage. And now treachery," she said. "I see clearly why you answered my question when no one else would. You are worthy, Captain Elias Ward." Elias bowed slightly. "I do what I must. I serve and I survive." The Queen's wings folded back, her many eyes glinting with both respect and curiosity. "Tomorrow," she said, "we begin the ceremony. The galaxy will see what I have seen, that only one human answered and only one could stand beside me." Elias looked out over the hive world as the first light of dawn touched the black towers. He knew the galaxy had changed forever. One answer, one human, had already begun to alter the course of history. The sun rose over the hive world, painting the black towers of the Zareth city in shades of gold and crimson. The air was alive with the sound of wings and whispers, for today was the day the galaxy would witness a union no one could have imagined. Thousands of Zareth had gathered in the grand arena, their eyes gleaming with curiosity, suspicion, or awe. Across the city, alien representatives from distant systems arrived, each carrying messages of shock and disbelief. Humans, though few in number, watched from the observation deck, holding their breath. At the center of the arena, Queen Xylaris sat upon her throne, her wings folded neatly, her armor gleaming in the morning light. Her many eyes swept across the crowd, noting every twitch of antenna and flick of wing. She was calm, yet her thoughts were racing. Beside her, Captain Elias Ward stood tall and unshaken. He wore simple ceremonial robes provided by the Queen's court, a symbol of respect but not of submission. His hands were at his sides, his eyes steady, meeting the gaze of the Queen without fear. The crowd murmured. Some hissed in disdain, refusing to accept a human at the Queen's side. Others whispered excitedly, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Queen Xylaris rose slowly. The arena fell silent instantly, every creature holding its breath. "Today," she said, her voice echoing like thunder, "the question I once asked will be answered." She paused, mandibles clicking softly. "Who among you will stand beside me as my chosen?" Elias stepped forward. The audience gasped. Some leaned forward, others whispered in disbelief. He did not hesitate. He did not falter. He raised his head and spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the arena. "I will." A wave of shock swept through the crowd. Alien and human alike stared, unable to comprehend it. "You," hissed a rival noble in the court. "This is impossible." But Elias did not speak to them. He addressed the Queen, his tone calm and unwavering. "I will stand beside you," he said. "Not because of fear or for power or for reward. I will stand beside you because this is right. We do not need to be the same. We do not need to agree on everything. We only need to respect each other and face the galaxy together." The Queen studied him, her many eyes narrowing, her mandibles twitching in contemplation. She had seen warriors, conquerors, rulers, and diplomats, but none had spoken like this. None had offered strength tempered with thought, courage blended with humility. "You are human," she said softly, almost to herself. "And yet, you understand something my people have long forgotten. Strength without wisdom is empty, and power without courage is nothing." The crowd remained silent, mesmerized. For the first time, many Zareth were unsure how to react. They had always respected strength, feared power, and worshipped dominance, but this human was something else. Queen Xylaris raised her hand. "Then it is done. You, human, shall stand beside me, not as a servant, not as a subject, but as my equal. Your courage, your wisdom, and your strength have earned it." The arena erupted in a mixture of cheers, hisses, and astonished murmurs. Humans clapped and shouted from the observation deck, while aliens across the city debated in stunned voices. This union was unprecedented. Elias stepped forward and bowed slightly to the Queen. "I will honor this responsibility," he said. "I will serve our people and protect this bond." The Queen extended one of her clawed hands toward him. Elias reached out and took it. The gesture was simple yet profound. Across the arena, a hush fell. This was not just a human accepting a challenge. This was a human showing respect and courage, bridging the gap between two species that had never known such harmony. The ceremony continued with rituals unfamiliar to human eyes. The Zareth had ancient customs, blending tradition with power. Elias learned quickly, moving with care and respect, listening to the chants of the Queen's court. He did not try to mimic them perfectly, he could not, but he participated with sincerity, and that sincerity earned the respect of even the harshest critics. When it came time for the vows, the Queen spoke first. "I, Xylaris, Queen of the Zareth, take you, human, as my equal. Together we shall lead our people. Together we shall face the galaxy. Together we shall be stronger than any of us could be alone." Elias nodded and spoke next. "I, Elias Ward, take you, Queen Xylaris, as my equal. I do not promise to be perfect. I do not promise to bend my nature. But I promise to stand beside you, to protect you, and to face the challenges of the galaxy together. We may be different, but together we are stronger." The Queen's mandibles clicked softly in approval, a gesture of deep respect. The crowd fell silent once again, realizing the gravity of what had just happened. The human had spoken boldly, and the Queen had accepted, not because she feared him, but because she saw his value, his courage, and his spirit. After the ceremony, Elias and the Queen walked side by side through the Hive City. Crowds lined the streets, buzzing, whispering, and staring in awe. Some approached to offer greetings while others hung back, wary of the human's place at the Queen's side. Elias noticed the children watching him with wide eyes. He knelt to greet a small Zareth hatchling, showing it that he meant no harm. The child chirped, clicked, and even reached toward him. For the first time, Elias felt a deep connection with the Queen's people, not through power, but through understanding and courage. The queen watched silently, her thoughts hidden yet her heart stirred. Elias was not a threat. He was a bridge. And in that moment she began to see the future in a way she had never imagined. Humans and Zareth standing together, not in fear or dominance but in partnership. Across the galaxy, news of the marriage spread like wildfire. Alien governments debated the implications. Some feared humanity would now wield influence over the Zareth Empire. Others marveled at the boldness of one human who dared to answer when no one else would. On distant planets, children whispered the story of the human who stood beside the most feared queen in the galaxy. Scientists studied humanity's history, trying to understand how such courage and wisdom could exist in one species. Military leaders reconsidered strategies, realizing humans could not be underestimated. And through it all, Elias remained calm. He did not boast, he did not claim power. He simply walked beside the queen, showing that strength, courage, and wisdom could exist together, and that humans were capable of greatness beyond the expectations of any other species. Weeks later, as the initial shock faded, the queen called Elias to a private chamber. "You have done what no other being could," she said. "You have shown that humans are not to be underestimated. But tell me, why did you answer when I asked?" Elias looked out the window at the sprawling city hive. "Because silence was worse than risk," he said. "Because no one else spoke. Because humanity faces the unknown with courage. And because sometimes the right answer is simple. Someone has to answer." The queen's many eyes softened. For centuries she had ruled through fear. She had never imagined that courage and honesty could be more powerful than intimidation. Yet here it was, embodied in one human standing beside her. "Then you are not only my chosen," she said softly, "but my teacher as well." Elias smiled faintly. "Then we learned together." Months passed. The human and the queen worked side by side, resolving disputes, strengthening alliances, and reshaping the galaxy's view of both species. Where there had been fear, there was now respect. Where there had been division, there was now cooperation. Across the stars, tales spread. The story of a single human who answered a terrifying question, faced impossible trials, survived betrayal, and stood beside a queen feared across the galaxy. The story inspired humans, alien species, and future generations alike. The queen herself, once feared and untouchable, began to see the world differently. With Elias at her side, she realized that strength and mercy, courage and wisdom could exist together. And together they would face the galaxy, not as ruler and subject, but as equals, partners, and pioneers of a new era. In the end, history remembered it simply. The alien queen asked who would marry her, and only one human answered. That one answer changed everything. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were bold. They were clever. They were capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. And through one human's courage and wisdom, the bonds between species were forever altered, bringing hope, unity, and the promise of a new age.